after this extraordinary week in this extraordinary time in this extraordinary place, I'm so pleased that I've got a little time here to talk to Mick Mulvaney, of course, the former Chief of Staff to Donald Trump. And we should never take for granted our proximity to Mick and Mick's institutional knowledge, and we appreciate it.
Shower again? Is that what you're mentioning?
No. I'm just saying, we appreciate the insight, and for little old Australia, it means an awful lot to have the insight that you've given us. So I want to ask a couple of questions, obviously about Trump and the administration and all the rest of it, but I also just want to talk about what it's like to come into office.
Okay.
Now, obviously, there's a run-up between now and January, but then there's the moment when, after midday, you walk into the office and you are running the government. How does a president, even one who's been there before, manage the moment from theoretically running the country to actually running the country?
So it's a fascinating question from a historical perspective, because Donald Trump is doing something today that no living human being has ever done, which is he's a former president being president again, which might make him the only person ever truly qualified for the job. Because the only way you can learn how to be president is to be the president. The job has started already. The job started I lose track of the days. It happens this week, but Wednesday morning, the next administration started, and there are people already working 16 hours a day. There's buildings throughout this entire city now filling up with people working on the transition to new government. I'm not making that up. You could drive down the street here, and there's a building right down there that is about 6 floors of now Trump transition staff working on hiring 4,000 people to help the next administration run the government. So it is a full-time job from day one. Yes, the inauguration doesn't happen until January 20th, but the next administration has actually started already.
And the reason I ask that question is because people are going to see stories about Trump trying to be a shadow president while Biden's the real president. Mm-hmm. This is what they all do, right?
Correct.
They are all talking to world leaders. They are all basically letting the existing president have the power to be able to respond to a national security emergency. But effectively, if you're a CEO or a prime minister or a president of somewhere else, you're talking to the new guy, not the old.
You are, and I think it's a uniquely American thing, at least with most of the Western-style democracies. I think you do it the same way the Brits do, which is on the day after the election, your prime minister changes. This overlap period, we call it the lame duck, is a truly, I think it's a unique American creation. It's fascinating to watch. By the way, in addition to what you've just described, which is sort of having 2 presidents at the same time, not officially, obviously, but it's sort of a de facto dual presidency, the building behind us is coming back next week.
Yes.
And all of the folks who just lost their jobs, there weren't many of them, but they still have a job voting until January 20th. So the old Congress will come back next week in this building. They'll be voting on things of gravity. They'll be voting on funding the government. A lot of giant legislative proposals will be dealt with between now and January. So you're a new member of Congress, and you can't even get in the building yet. I've been in that shoes as well. So this overlap period is fascinating to see. It's a good time, I think, for foreign governments to reach out to the Trump team. Now, again, they don't really have to do that as much this time, because they know Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, Albanese doesn't, because he wasn't prime minister when Trump was president the first time. But there's the institutional knowledge is there. The government organizations in Australia know the government organizations here, and the transition, I think, between the two is going to be very simple.
Let's get to the brass tacks. That the existing prime minister said that Trump scared the S out of him.
Yes.
The ambassador has previously said pretty nasty things, and literally today has deleted tweets that were critical of him.
That always works.
So, how does Trump view Australia if those are the faces of our country?
I get this question a lot, and people are always stunned by my answer. The same way you and I would. I mean, if I was doing this interview and I'm walking up the steps and I've seen that, Paul just tweeted out that I was a complete so-and-so and so-and-so, do you think it might impact this dynamic?
Correct.
Yes, it would. Now, that's one side of the argument. The other argument is like, as long as we've got a decent relationship, I can say, Paul, what the hell is
What's
this?
all this about, man?
Exactly, and you can work through it. And I think that's how I describe it to people. Is it going to be an issue? Yes. When is it not going to be an issue? When it gets fixed, because that's what people do. Nothing makes you a different kind of human being when you win an election. That includes the election for president. So Donald Trump, sitting in his office right now in New York, I guess he's in Mar-a-Lago, is a person, and he's going to wonder why Albanese said these things about him. He probably knows why, but he's going to say, okay, how do we work through this? Now, it's going to be in Albanese's court to start. It's not like Donald Trump is going to call him and say, Albanese, we'd like to apologize.
Yeah.
So I'm a little surprised. As someone who does follow U.S.-Australian relations very closely, I'm still good friends with Joe Hockey, as you know.
Good man.
I'm a little disappointed that Albanese hasn't reached out yet. If I was advising him, if I was in his government, I said, look, pick up the phone. He's going to call.
Yeah.
You can't be to the point where you just hope it's going to go away without doing anything.
Well, and also we're sort of seeing now again some of the side reporting that, you know, they're taking note of who's ringing versus who is expecting to be rung. And guess what? When you've won, don't expect the call, you're ringing him, right?
That's correct.
That's the way it works. All right, I've got just a couple of seconds left, literally. What are you most hopeful about that first 100 days?
That they hit the ground running. The biggest impediment to the first term was that there was a learning curve because Trump didn't expect to win. He hadn't done the work necessary during this lame duck period. In fact, before the election in 2016. I'm excited to see what happens once he's got a team in place that's ready to go today and then again on January 20th.
Good stuff. Thank you, Mick. Really appreciate it. Look forward to talking to you into the future.